Very good morning, everyone. Actually, I'm quite sad. Do you want to ask me why? Okay, thank you for asking. I'm 36, so I'm no longer a youth. But I'm very happy to still possess the rigor and vigor of a youth, and to promote and to share a little bit about my culture with everyone today. Now, so my lecture is entitled Moving Bodies, Connecting Histories. Next slide. And as what Liana has just shared, my lecture will share a little bit about looking at histories and how this can foster intergenerational conversations. Next slide. Now, I would like to start the lecture by offering this shared space to a spectral presence. She has long been discarded and forgotten for all that she has given us. At one time, she was regarded as the queen of the floor. Later, she was seen as impure and unbecoming of a proper Malay lady. Today, via this GIF image, she graces us with her presence, reminding us that without her, we could not have come this far. As she wheels her limbs and moves her hips repeatedly, she emerges slowly from underneath the many negative connotations that have demeaned and belittled her all these years. Her mastery of movement, space, and power deserves recognition, for she has tolerated for far too long for her seat as her rightful place as the bearer of tradition of what we now call Malay dance. She is the Ronggeng girl, often known as the Penari Joget. The Ronggeng is a social dance practice, event, and tradition from the villages, which involve not only dancing between men and women, but also with live accompaniment from a group of musicians and singers who would sing, usually in a poetic prose known as the pantun. The Ronggeng troupe would consist of these multiple performers roving from one village to the other, providing much-needed entertainment in the rural areas of Malay archipelago. Because they will be traveling for months on end, it is common for these troops to seek temporary refuge in one village for weeks before moving to their next port of call in another village. Ronggeng troops attracted people from near and far, mostly men who like to show and test their skill in dancing with a Ronggeng girl who is believed to have ample experience in outwitting her male counterparts in the art of dance. However, the squeals and joys in a boisterous Ronggeng event, the gathering of bodies to the rhythm of drums, and the exchange of poetry can never outwit the burgeoning stigma that she must endure from jealous male patrons and their wives, and the cultural and religious elites who are beginning to frown upon the practice. Ultimately, she's not only the master of social dance, but also the master of withholding her many emotions as she navigates through the gossips and rumors of her virtue, as her community tries to make sense of their own place in a waning colonial environment, navigating tradition in modernity. This GIF is an excerpt from a film called Masyarakat Pincang, produced in 1958 by the Malay Film Productions. In this scene, in particular, the Ronggeng girl dressed in dark kebaya must deal with a very obnoxious patron who has been harassing her. This, of course, is a representation of a popular culture wherein the Ronggeng girl was a key figure of urban entertainment of the 1950s, especially in the Joget halls of urban entertainment parks such as Great World, New World, and Gay World. She sits on her designated chair every night with her fellow colleagues, waiting for patrons to come to buy a deck of tickets to hire her for her time. For every ticket she receives, she must dance with each of them individually for a duration of one song. The patron-dancer relationship on the dance floor provided a platform for creative and innovative styles of performance to emerge, especially when it is not within the convention of the ronging to allow either party to be in contact with each other. It was common practice for the patron and dancer to dance around each other flirtatiously, moving back and forth with them in a weaving pattern. Often, she has no power to choose who her patrons are because she needs to collect as many tickets so that she will be able to exchange it with her boss to get her dues for the day. It is this taxi-like nature of hiring a dancer that some within the community regard her as an entertainer of men's desire. She is seen as a person of low status, impure, and disgrace. Now, I invoke the figure of the ronging girl today as a means to show how an engagement of history provides us with a nuanced understanding of an artistic communal practice. Through her absence in official histories of Malay dance practice, we are made to wonder first about why she has been silenced. And in the efforts to recognize her in the 21st century, what must be done to help destigmatize her downtrodden image? Second, as an obvious agent of popular culture and also the subject of colonial economy that placed her in the lower rungs of society, what happens if we were to reposition her as a career woman and a key personality of pre-nation state creative industry, to use a very contemporary term? Most importantly, what is her role in the practice of what we understand today as a Malay dance? Now, the next slide. Just to share a little bit about how ronging would look like, because the form that we practice today on stages is an art dance, is merely a representation. And this was a social dance scene back in the 50s to the 60s. Are you able to play the video? So she's telling the patron not to touch. Just to give you an idea of how the ronging would look like. Thank you. Her spectral presence in this century's momentum to be inclusive of the diversity of identities and the energetic initiatives to decolonize, she becomes a marker of rejuvenation. Through her, we know that the transmission of a social dance tradition became popular culture. When ronging became co-opted into Singapore's urban life, Singapore as a nation state, it became a cosmopolitan practice. That is, it's not exclusive only to a particular ethnic group. And this is something you hear a lot in oral history recordings of people of different racial backgrounds dancing with ronging girls and how they enjoyed their experience dancing with them. And soon after, the ronging as a practice became a key feature of community building, nation building, when after political rallies and government meetings, the ronging is used as a way to garner community participation. So when her practice ceased, social dance became art dance. The Malay dance that we observe and participate in the 21st century Singapore is a mere representation of what was before. We depend on the nostalgia of aging veterans to transmit the values of an art form that was inherently social, dynamic, and eclectic. What happens if the memories of the social aspect of dance is lost with the preceding generation? What will mere documented descriptions and performed representations be sufficient? Now, I choose the Ronggeng girl as a case study to show some of the parallels and some of the issues that we go through within the Malay dance community. And I will highlight soon after some of the examples of which I've initiated to encourage discourse and also knowledge sharing. Next slide, please. So I would like to share about this group of mothers. They were dancers back in their youths. Next slide. And they started, this is a grassroots initiative, so they started their own group called Mak Menari in 2012. And the reason for doing so was because they enjoyed to still dance, but because they are mature women, wives and mothers, so they felt that they couldn't go back to their previous groups because they would feel that it's going to be a very difficult time for them to catch up with the energetic and the energy of their younger counterparts. So what happened was they came together, and they came from many different groups within Singapore, and they decided to start this group. So what I did in 2020 was to collaborate with Mak Menari to share their stories, and this was commissioned work by M1 Fringe Festival, where we shared a little bit through working collaboratively, we hear some of their stories and what do they go through. Now, the stigma of the Ronggeng girl is something that continues to live on because they themselves face this issue when they are seen sometimes as unbecoming of a Malay lady, especially when they already have children, and some of them are also already the level of a grandmother. So they came together still because of their passion for dance. Next slide. Right, so this is just some footage, pictures from Mama Menari, which premiered in 2020. The next slide. Now, we were talking about the Ronggeng, and I was very pleased that with the support from the National Arts Council, I was able to initiate a Ronggeng revival, and it's still in its first phase. Next slide. And we were looking at it as a ground sensing initiative, phase 1, where I worked together with some of my other counterparts within the scene. And I was very pleased that it was received quite well, because we had a lot of focus group discussions, not only with veteran dance practitioners, but also with musicians. Next slide. And so the objectives of the Ronggeng Revival Project in particular was to revive a social dance event known as the Ronggeng, and then to also revitalize and reinstate the integral bond between music and dance. And this is, of course, something that is quite sidelined. In the practice of Malay dance, we don't fully learn how to understand music, and this is something that I hope to bridge the gap in trying to encourage future generations understand that Malay dance is in fact encompassing performing arts form. And third, to innovate new models of performance presentation and to collaborate with artists, scholars, and activists. Next slide. So here, you see us during early this year having conversations with regards to the Ronggeng. Of course, this was not always a happy story. There were, of course, issues with the term Ronggeng itself. The stigma of it continues to live on within a particular generation. Interestingly, too, when we wanted to interview living Ronggeng girls, it was their children who actually did not allow us to do so because they did not wish for us to relive the past. But interestingly, it was their grandchildren that were willing to share the stories of their grandparents. Right? Next. And also with the musicians focus group. Next. and also adjacent arts, we also acknowledge that Ronggeng is not only for the dance and music art sectors, also to include conversations with scholars, theatre practitioners, and journalists as well. Next slide. Now, I was also very pleased to have started this online portal called Arkitari, which is an opportunity to share about Southeast Asian, maritime Southeast Asian performing arts form, and to make knowledge about it accessible. Now, this has come to the fore because last year itself, I've noticed a heightened number of students who were eager to learn more about Malay dance, but felt that the knowledge that were present online was not encompassing. So through Arkitari, next slide. So it is like a one-stop site. Next slide. To share, articles that were written not only by myself but also by other writers. One of them is our Teman Warisan, Miss Liana, who also, was very eager to share the relations between language and dance. Next slide. And we were looking at different other aspects also, because a lot of times when we talk about Malay dance, we keep talking about the aesthetics of it. Now, what's important here is to also look into the socio-cultural and historical elements of it, so that there is a nuance and deeper understanding of Malay dance. So here we looked at anatomy, language. Next slide. And of course, looking at evolution. The form is not a stagnant one. It continues to evolve, and it continues to evolve with its practitioners. And in closing, I would like to pay tribute again to the Ronggeng girl, who I hope will receive recognition as bearers of tradition. And today, I'm glad that the younger generation is willing to have the conversation to ask about her place and space today in the 21st century. And with that, I would like to pay tribute to just dance.